I'm James Wright, and welcome to my shop. It's time for another monthly Q&A. So you get to ask me whatever questions you want, and I will dive into them, whether you want me to display something or explain something. We'll have some fun with that. If you are new to this, if you are watching it recorded, there are a whole bunch of all the questions listed down in the description down below. So you can click on the description, and you can see timestamps by all of the questions. So if you want to, you can actually read through the questions and see which ones you want answered. Makes it a little bit faster to jump through and see which ones you want to see. If you are watching this live, then hop into the chat, wherever it is on the particular device you're using, and ask the questions away. My wife down there, Sarah, is the beautiful and gorgeous queen of the castle. She will be collating all of the questions and putting them into the chat.
Buttering me up because you're ditching me for the rest of the week.
I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, as to ditching my wife, tomorrow morning I'm getting up really early and flying out to Pennsylvania. We're going to be going to the MWTCA National Meet. And so if you don't know what this is, it is the largest antique tool sale in the world. And they do 2 national meets each year. One of them is usually right in the Midwest, and one of them is usually out of the Midwest a ways. And so this year it is in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. And then in the fall it will be in Michigan City, Indiana. So I'm actually going to be doing a talk at that one. But if you've ever wanted to buy a tool, that's the place to do it. And there's a reason that people quite literally fly in from around the world. It's well worth it, because if you imagine an entire basketball court covered with tools, and they're all for sale, that's what the MWTCA meet is. On Thursday, there will be a tool show, tool sale outside, weather permitting, and everyone basically backs their truck up in the parking lot and sells tools. It is a great way to buy the not so collectible but good user tools, and usually a much better price, because it's just, I'm cleaning out my stock, come take it. And they're a lot of fun. And so that happens from about sunrise until sometime around noon. It tapers out. And then there are a few demonstrations and displays and other things that happen on Thursday. I think there's a couple tours on Thursday as well. And then on Friday it goes inside, and we have the tool meet inside. It tends to be a little bit more of a collector edition, but there is everything you've ever wanted. You'll find at least one of them there. It's a fantastic place to buy tools. Then on Saturday, it's inside again, and it is whatever's left over is now for sale, and people just want to get rid of it because they don't want to have to carry it back out to their car. And so usually you can get really good deals on Saturday, but you're kind of picking through what's left. And then also there are several talks, historical societies for tools. There's the What Is It? There's an auction. There is a dinner on Saturday. There are lots of other things that go on with it. It's a whole convention around antique tools. So that's going to be happening this Thursday, Friday, Saturday in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Unfortunately, you do have to be a member of the MWTCA in order to get in. You have to pay the convention fee then. And so if you want to get invited to MWTCA meets, you have to be a member. And those are the big national ones. There's 2 of those a year, and then there's a bunch of little ones that happen all throughout the year.
Now you can pay at the door, correct?
Yes, you can show up and become a member and pay the entrance fee and get into it. And there is a smaller entrance fee if you just want to come Saturday. But if you want to go Thursday or Friday, you buy the whole shebang. Yeah, it's a lot of fun though. It's one I really look forward to. So yes. As well as the local meets. I like going to all those because they're a little bit smaller, but you tend to get to know the people around there, and so you know the people who are collecting different things and what they're looking for, and other people are like, I'm looking for that. Well, so-and-so collects it. Why don't you go talk to him? Yeah, so let's dive into our questions. What do we got?
Let's see. Alan Lewis, is there a new ETA on the reed brass knobs for the hand plane?
The brass knobs. I wasn't just shooting a video about those yesterday, was I? But yes, they will be coming out tomorrow. The video will go live on that. And yes, stay tuned. 8 a.m. Central Time. Video will go live, and they will be out for sale. So.
Oh, while you're
tomorrow.
on a plane. Okay.
What's
good.
that?
So while you're on a plane.
Yeah.
So don't expect
I have
any
a 5-hour
packaging.
layover, and so I'll be able to do all of the paperwork then. But yeah, ship out won't go until Monday. So, sorry.
Yeah.
This is the way we roll.
There will be a delay, and Sarah would not be able to process the orders correctly. So.
No.
There's a system, and I don't know it. Dr. Kahn, let's see. Going to first MWTCA meet. What are things to know, preferred payment, meetups, etc., and how to enter auction items?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing you there. As to paying for things, it's pretty much just cash. You can write a check sometimes. There are a few people who will take PayPal or Venmo, or there are a couple people who will come with a card reader, but generally it's cash. And that way, because we're in the club and we're selling things inside the club, we're kind of fall into a couple loopholes in taxing, so it makes it much easier. And so most people just do just do cash rather than having to figure that out. Yeah, because that can get very confusing. As to the auction, there will be a space where you can set things aside. You put them on there with your name, or whether or not you want them to be just proceeds donated, or you want that. And you set them up there, and I believe it's Friday night is the auction. And then there is another table that's the what is it. So if you have a tool that you have no idea what it was used for, you put it on the tool, and everyone then talks about it. And usually there's someone like, oh yeah, my grandfather used to use one of those. I remember back on the farm we did that. And you learn all sorts of crazy things about it. And that's one of the biggest things about the MWTCA is every table you go to, there's 4 or 5 things on the table you've never seen before, and you're like, oh, what is this? And the person's like at the table, oh, I gotta tell you the story behind this, because this was used for this particular thing. You learn an incredible amount about the tools, their history, how they were used, the people that used them, the background from the tool, who used to own it, and it's a great way to learn about tools very, very quickly. What other things was he wondering to know?
Let's see.
Other things going on, there are several historical talks. Like on last one, we had a horner come in who talked about how you worked with horn and hoof and antler, carving them and shaping them. A really fascinating talk. We've had several in the past about how windows were made, and a particular history of a tool company and how they developed and where they were and what the things they made, different collections they could talk through. Basically, anything history, tools, you'll have someone who specifies in that. And the Thursday of the fall one, I'm going to be doing a tool demonstration. I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but I'll do a full talk. It's usually around an hour and a half or so. Last time I did a talk on how to mess up at woodworking. Really good video, and a lot of people need to learn that one more. Yeah, lots of things like that.
Are there, do you have any meetups planned while you're out there?
I'm not going to be doing a Wood by Wright meetup, though stay tuned. I might say, hey, I'm going to dinner. Anyone want to come with me? I don't have anything particularly planned because everyone's bumping into each other. It's really only a couple hundred people, so you get to see everyone involved. So it's not something like that. But stay tuned. I'll probably put on socials that I'm going to dinner on Friday night. Who wants to come with me? That type of thing. What?
That's
She's
what I got to
giggling.
do. And that's apparently how I got to get you to dinner is.
Yes.
No, the kids are gone next week. Date night.
Yes.
All week. All right, let's see. Ken Carlile. What are the critical dimensions and angles of a panel gauge? It seems like as long as the beam is straight and 90 degrees from the other bit, all is good.
Where did I put my panel gauge? I was just using it today. Oh, there it is. Honestly, it doesn't even have to be straight. This does not need to be 90 degrees to that, because the only thing that matters is how far is this point away from that wall. So if this were at an angle and you dragged it along, it really wouldn't make any difference because that point is still out a specific distance from the fence, even if the board itself is at an angle to it. It's one of those things I'm like, okay, I'm sure you could mess one up. But they're really straightforward. Actually, I don't think mine is square. Let's see, how far off am I? Yeah, I'm off. A long ways off. Here, let me show you. Focus on my hand, and then over to here. So here's mine, and I am off by that much. So no, it does not need to be square at all. It just has to be a hole a certain distance away from your fence. There are a bunch of things you can make it more funky. Some people put a rabbet into the bottom edge so that it will slide along the board a little bit better. There's different mechanisms for tightening it and loosening it. I put a brass wear rod in mine so the screw comes down and locks down onto it. I need to put a better pin in this one. I put a nail into it, and the nail is wearing out much faster than it should. So yeah, it's one of those things that all you need is a point and a fence. How you connect those doesn't make any difference. Everything else is just things to make it a little bit better. So not something to really overthink about. But if you have a specific question, let me know.
Oh,
What's
shoot.
next?
I forgot to put a timestamp on that.
Yeah, if you want to see, I have a video on making this one. I made a set of them a while ago, and
Yeah, that was a while ago.
it was probably 5-6 years ago.
That would define a while.
What's that?
I said that would define a while, especially for Wood
Yeah.
by Wright. I'm sassy tonight. Anyways, Warren Munn.
Tonight?
Shut up. What's the smallest, fiddliest project you've done, and any tips on working on small projects with multiple parts that need to join/align with each other?
I made a Roubeau-style frame saw for Barbie. That one was small and fiddly. If you don't know, if you go on Instagram, Barbie's Workshop, Workshop? Which one is it?
Are you talking
Barbie's
about-
Workshop?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a whole Instagram video of Barbie making things, and she has an entire shop with all the tools. I mean, like, as many tools as I have, there are Barbie-sized tools that are all functioning. And I made a couple and sent it over, but actually making that one was kind of fun. So it was, you know, a Barbie saw-sized Roubeau frame saw that actually cut. I'm trying to think of what other. So I've done a bunch of like little burr puzzles that were fun. I generally don't like little fiddly, but I do every now and then. The one-piece Roubeau book stand. That's a lot of fun. It's a single hinging piece, relatively easy to do, but you just have to have patience, and it's got to be one of those things that everything has to come together on it. I'm trying to think of what other little fiddly things. You know, there's some small whittling projects I've done. Meko, that one's little and fiddly. At least those are the projects that come to mind.
I'm surprised I didn't top that list, but anyway.
Yes, the constant project that will control the rest of my life. The little and fiddly Queen Sarah.
What can I say?
You're welcome.
Okay, I'm very distracted by the little dinosaur eating an earplug. So if you see me randomly smirking, that's what I'm laughing at.
He's breathing fire. Foam
Oh,
fire.
that's what it is.
Yes.
Okay.
What's next?
Let's see. Kenny-Anjanette Horn said, "What started the collecting of spill planes, and how many do you have?"
Well, first off, I'm looking forward to seeing you this week. So I know you guys will be there. Or at least one of you too. I think you'll both be there. I don't have that many. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. I have 8 spill planes. So I mean, yes, that is a collection, but it's not huge. And I know several people who have spill plane collections in the hundreds, if not thousands.
Why?
And it's not something I've really gotten into. If I see something interesting, I'll probably pick one up. It's not something I've dedicated into, but every now and then I'll see something and be like, yeah, I want that one. Like I've been wanting to get the one from Veritas that's the remake of, it actually is, rather than be a plane that you run over the wood, you mount it to the bench and you run your wood over it, which looks kind of cool and I've been wanting to try. And I've got a couple other similar designs that I've wanted to make. It's more about different ways that you can make a spill. I like seeing the different methodologies of that. But it's not something I've really put much time and effort into other than when I see one, I grab it.
That's what you should do for a video one time, is light it by spills.
Light it.
You know.
Oh,
and then do a project.
For those of you who don't know, a spill is, well, a spill, let me see which one of these is probably better right now. I think this one's set up. Let's see. Yeah, let's give it a try. Here. Spills are just kind of fun. They are a worthless product where the actual product you are making is the wood curl. So I've got this plane here, and it kind of goes a weird
are you
angle.
trying to switch camera?
I need to switch cameras. So on this one, yeah, this one's not set up quite right. Let me just try adjusting it a little bit. They're very, very fiddly. Very, very fiddly. Let's see if that one gives me what I want. Not quite.
Better.
That's close. Let's do this one. This is one I made from a red rose reproductions. That's a little closer, but still a little fiddly. But basically, they'd be spun round a little bit tighter, and you would use this as a match. You'd actually light the tip of it, and you can go around and light the candles. So you create a spill. And so the spill is actually the product. This is probably the wrong wood for it, in the wrong setting. But, got some epoxy in my vise. What's next?
All right. Dave Arends wants to know, what is the splitter on a Stanley 45 for?
What is the what? What?
Splitter?
Oh, you have a little nicking cutter. Grab my 45. And yeah, it is one of those things that you can go your entire... Whoo, I caught it with a foot.
I'm not going back to work tonight. Do not hurt yourself.
Yes. For those of you who don't know, she's a nurse. Put this back in. My toothing plane hit the ground. It's one of those tools that you could spend your entire career as a woodworker and never, ever, ever use. And it has so few actual uses. But if you need it, it's one of those tools that it's the tool that does it well. What's going on here? Here, I grabbed it down. I was thinking it was sitting right there. Let me see, where is it at? It's in one of these. You can see I use it all the time. See if I can actually find it. It's down in this one. Let's see if we can get it out. Hey, we got it out. Here we are. The slitting cutter. The slitting cutter is a knife, a weirdly shaped little knife that goes on the Stanley 45. And get this in focus. There we go. So this is the slitting cutter, and it rides in the 45 in this slot back here. So you can take the screw off.
It's still kind of fuzzy.
Let me refocus on that.
Better.
And so it rides in this slot, and is a blade that comes down and sticks a certain distance away from this, or you have it stick down past the fence so it can cut a longer distance away from the actual fence. The problem with it is, if you're cutting something thicker than a 1/16 of an inch, it won't do it. It tends to follow the grain and wind all over the place. And so you have to be very, very careful with it. And you want the grain to be running in a very specific direction so that it will actually run on the grain rather than in the grain. But if you are working with thicker veneer, it can work very well. It's a little bit fiddly on that. There are some other weird uses for actually like splitting off stock. But I've heard people talk about them and say, oh yeah, this works for it, and it was used for this particular like matchmaking. But I've never seen any documentation on it. I've never seen any actual uses. And the actual documentation from Stanley about what this is and how to use it is really vague. It's one of those things like it shows you the tool, it shows you how to mount it, it shows you how to use it, but it has nothing that actually tells you what it's for. It's kind of one of those things that if you know what it's for, then you know what it's for. And if you don't know what it's for, then you're never going to use it. So yeah, I've never done a video on it because I have never actually used it. And that's been one of those things that's been bugging me, is I want to actually do a lot of research and come up with, it was specifically designed for this process and this process and this process, and let's demonstrate and show those. But most of the things I've seen that it does, there are other tools that do it very well. And so why use this? But yeah. So if you have good resources and information on that, send it to me. I'd love to take a look at it. But as of right now, it's the slitting cutter, and I've never actually used it specifically. I've played around with it for veneer cutting and things of that nature. But every time I've done that, I've gone and used a veneer saw instead. So yeah. What's next?
Sorry, worth the effort. Put a comment up and I was trying to read it. Let's see, Faustian Spirit. Any new tools coming out soon that you have your eye on?
New tools coming out? Not really. I don't buy a lot of new tools. I tend to stick to antiques. I like working with them a little more, just for the fun of it. But when things do come out, I try and buy them to support the makers. And every now and then there are things that work into my shop. But new things coming out particularly, not really. I mean, other than the brass knobs, which are coming out tomorrow. Trying to think of anything particular. I mean, DFM Toolworks has a few things coming down the line.
Yeah. That, what was it? Two-sided head handle. I had like two tones. I don't know. It looked
Oh,
cool.
the mallet?
Yeah.
Yeah. He has a whole series of really cool looking mallets. I know Rex Kruger has a few things he's developing. I'm interested to see the Maker Knife number 2, Mark II.
Ooh.
He keeps talking about that one, and I'm hoping that comes out sometime. Yeah, nothing really comes to mind. So. What's
Sarah's
next?
writing down for Christmas. Anyways.
Super chat.
Yes. Sumi, what projects would you recommend to introduce to children 10 years old and 7 years old to woodworking?
That really depends on the kid. And it's one of those things that usually what I end up doing is I have like 5 or 6 different things, and I say, what of these do you want to build? And I want them to have a buy-in into what is being made. Otherwise, they tend to not be as interested in it. But if they see it coming together and they see something they want to make, there's the classic, the bird feeder and the bird house. I like making little whirly gigs. You can make these with a spokeshave in no time at all. Making a mallet. Puzzles like a burr puzzle, those can go together pretty easily. As well as just simple toys, wheels and cars and things like that that you can put together pretty easily. A toolbox would be a great one. Actually, I have a whole series on my website, free plans that can download. Paper towel holder, that would be kind of a fun one. They can decorate it the way
That
they
is
want.
actually a very useful project James has put together. Especially
What?
because you mount it.
The paper towel holder?
Yes, I love my mounted one.
There you go. Free plans on my website.
It's very useful.
Trying to think of anything particular. Yeah, it's usually, I have made a point that I don't push the kids to make anything. I will encourage them with, hey, I have this particular type of project. You want to try it out? JJ and Arthur, I mean, Arthur's not quite to the age. He's 8.
9.
And he's 9 now, that's right. And he's just not showing as much interest in it. JJ hasn't shown much interest in woodworking at all. Melody, on the other hand, does. But her things she wants to build are way too big and grand. Like, I want to build a house. Yeah, okay. Well, let's put that on the back burner. How about we build a birdhouse? So, yeah.
You did an easel. You made an
Yeah,
easel.
made an easel with her. Those are free plans as well. Yeah, so I mean, pick a list of things and show it to the child and say, what do you want to build? Let them have a buy-in on it. And it's one of those nice things because you don't have to make things professional. You don't have to use high-end dovetail joinery. You can stick 2 boards together, drill a hole through them, and pound a dowel into it. And it will work perfectly fine, and it's a lot of fun for them because they get to, drill a hole, they get to cut things to length, they get to drive the dowel in and flush cut it off. You get to do all those things, but they're very simple joinery that just about anyone can do. They don't have to look terribly pretty, they just have to be functional at the end, and you have something that the child can be happy with. So, yeah, look for the simpler things and have some fun with it. Let them have buy-in in it. What's next?
You ready for a mom
Oh,
joke?
yes, we got the mom joke. What is it?
What did James Bond's mom say as she was giving birth?
What?
I've been expecting you, Mr. Bond.
Yes. What's next?
That's the closest you're going to get an accent out of me because I suck at them. Anyways. Bradley Jackson. Question. I just picked up your card scraper and I'm wondering what are the steps I take to start using it?
I have 6 or 7 videos on how to sharpen a card scraper. I'll show you the few basics that people generally miss, though. Is when you're using the card scraper, number one, use a hard wood to learn on. The harder the wood, the easier it is to learn to use the card scraper. Soft wood is actually very difficult on a card scraper. And for everything else, soft wood is something that's a little easier to learn. For a card scraper, it's much harder. The next thing is probably the most important item that people leave off is they get the wrong angle on it. And people like to put it way down here, a acute angle way down here. And you can kind of get things, but it works better if you bring it up and you get up here, and now you get these nice curls. And that's what you're looking for, are those curls. If you're getting dust, something's wrong. So usually I'm going to tell people to start at 90 degrees, and you won't get anything, and then slowly lean it forward until it catches. And right when it catches, that's the angle you want to use it at. This is just fun. I like that. That's the biggest problem that most people have is the angle. They'll turn a burr, but then they'll put it at too steep of an angle or too high of an angle, and get it back and forth. When it actually comes to how do you sharpen it, how do you turn the burr, that ends up being a really, really personal thing. Because I have 6 videos and I show probably 3 different methods. But if you talk to 10 different woodworkers, you'll get 12 different methods of how to sharpen a card scraper. Because it's one of those things where most people end up trying 7, 8, 9, 10 different methods and nothing's working until suddenly one method works and it clicks and it's like, oh, this is the great method. Well, yeah, maybe for you, but for someone else, they're going to try other things and find another method that works for them. So it's kind of finding one that works for you. The other thing that I've found is my burnisher. Where is it? There it is. The burnisher you use is very important. The steel on the card scraper is not important at all. You'll hear people talking about, oh, the steel on this one's really good and the steel on that one's really bad. They're all the same stupid spring steel. The steel does not matter. They're not going to give you any better material for one another. The important thing is that the burnisher is harder than your steel. So if you're using a screwdriver, some screwdrivers are harder and some are not. And some might be a little bit harder, but some might be a little bit softer. And the more contrast between the hardness of your steel and the softness of the card scraper, the better. And so that's why a lot of people go up to a carbide, which is a really, really hard material. The problem with most carbides are, though, they are very, very finely polished, and they get almost a mirror polish on there. And they will still turn a burr, but they don't actually grab the steel. And so I like using these. They're unfinished, so they're not polished at all. They are a very rough, let me see if I can get a focus on this. There's a rough surface. There's no polish on that at all. And that rough surface kind of grabs the steel and yanks it along. And so those are the ones that I sell on my website because they just work really, really well. Next thing is probably just don't overthink it. Try a few different methods and find one that works for you. YouTube's going to be your friend because every woodworker is going to show you something slightly different. Follow their method through. If it works for you, great. If it doesn't, call up another one and go down the series. So spend a day trying a few of them and you'll find that, oh, this one actually clicks and works with you, because it's incredibly personal that the method that works for you is not the method that's going to work for the next guy, and the next method is going to work for another one. But unfortunately, I can only teach the 3 or 4 that I've actually gotten to know and use well. because if I'm actually going to show how to do it well, it's when I've got to learn a different method. And so it's one of those things that most woodworkers know their method and maybe one other that actually works for them. So yeah, have some fun, experiment, and make sure your angle is correct. What's next?
How many YouTubers will be at the MWTCA?
I would be very surprised if there's any others. Well, I mean, Alex will be there. He has a YouTube channel. He's been putting out a couple recently. He's actually, I'm sharing a room with him. Yeah, I don't know if anyone else. Because it's hand tool woodworking and antique hand tool woodworking, there aren't very many. I've been trying to get Rex to come out to him, but he doesn't travel for anything. He probably will at some point. What's that?
It costs.
Yeah, yeah. And he tends to go on the ultra cheap, buying the Chinese and making them work, whereas I tend to focus on getting the antiques and getting them up and going. What's that?
Someone commented losing your mic.
I don't know. If anyone else tells me it, we'll take a look at it. But yeah, no, there won't be much of anything else on there. So, what's next? Let me check on this while you talk.
No name, please. What's your favorite tool in the shop?
Oh, thanks. My favorite tool is whatever tool I am currently holding. I mean, honestly, I love working with hand tools and getting them up and going, and having everything kind of fun. Usually, if a push comes to shove, my favorite tool is my 1/2-inch Richter chisel. Get that out of the way.
It was my mic. It got turned off.
Oh.
I don't know.
I mean, you can do anything with that. I've done several videos on making something with just a chisel. I have one where I went into the woods with a strop and a 1/2-inch chisel, and I cut down the tree. I split the log. I cut mortise and tenon and created legs and made a split log stool using nothing but a 1/2-inch chisel. There are very few tools that you can do all of that with. Yeah, individual steps will be easier with a particular tool, but if you want just one, that's the tool you want. However, that being said, you can replace a bigger chisel with a smaller chisel, but you cannot replace a smaller chisel with a bigger chisel, because there are things that a small chisel can do that a big chisel can't do. But nothing a big chisel can do, a small chisel can't. It just takes more time for a small. Okay.
Sorry, I can do your question.
Yeah, I'm just making sure. Favorite tool, yeah, that answers it. But usually it's whichever one I'm currently holding and playing with, because I love learning new tools and how they work. What's next?
So Gigi asked, do you know what finishes were traditionally used on old molding planes? I scraped paint drips off a beech plane, and those spots are much lighter now.
Yeah, they were generally just oiled, oil and paste wax. That's the traditional finish for most anything you would hold in your hands. Over the years, particularly in England, there was a lot of mutton tallow that was used, sheep fat, and it was basically used the exact same way the oil was. And that's where you get that darker look on a lot of the older ones, is usually from a mutton tallow or something similar to that. And you'd see a lot of people putting coat after coat after coat of oil. Every 6 months or so you put another coat of oil on there, and it starts to build up and turn it darker. But usually it's just a paste wax and or oil of one type or another, or what the particular maker or user liked. The actual finish is really simple, especially when it comes to wooden hand planes. They weren't glossy coated or protective. They were something that was intended to be used in the hand. So, yeah. What's next?
All right, can y'all hear me now? I switched the batteries. I'm all green. We should be good. Let's see. Ken Carlile, can you show off your Miller Falls cigarette spokeshave? I need to be reminded how much I want one.
Yes, The Miller's Falls number 2 spokeshave. It is probably my favorite spokeshave, and they have become very expensive. Ow! Hit my funny bone. And the cool thing about it is it's got this mouth, and you can loosen these. Well, I need to get new screws. These ones are rusted. But this mouth, you can flip it around, and one side has a flat and one side has a rounded. So you can have it as a flat or a round spokeshave. It also has a very small radius. It's just a very light, delicate, and just a lot of fun. I love this thing. I've got another one that is just the body. And I need to pull the screws off of that and put it on that one and kind of cannibalize the two. But it is just, it can be a little bit more difficult to learn because with a good spokeshave, it's all in the wrist. It's all about how you use it. And if it's at the wrong angle, it's not going to cut anything. But if it's at the right angle, the thing cuts. And this one's actually not extended at all. So there we go, that side. And it's so pleasing when you get those little curls coming off.
Which camera do you think you're on?
I'm not on any of them.
Okay.
I'm just having fun making curls.
I was just making sure.
Yeah, Miller Falls number 2. The number 1 is a little bit more fiddly, and is far more common. It also is a little bit bigger, so it doesn't get into small curves quite as easily. But yeah, they're often referred to as the cigar as the number 1, and the number 2 is the cigarette because it's much thinner. What's next?
Let's see. Worth the Effort wants to know, does your state have public land where you can go hunt trees? Texas doesn't, but Cremona used to mention going on public land to get stuff for sawmills.
I don't know. I've never looked into that. Yeah, I don't know. I have to look into it. But I don't have a mill, so it's something I've never.
I was going to say.
Yeah, I would actually be kind of surprised, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if you can talk to the local park ranger and say, hey, I do milling and cutting trees. If you ever have something you need me to cut down, I'll come do it for you. But yeah, I don't know of in particular in Illinois. So it'd be interesting to find out, though.
We are in the forest city, so
yeah.
Who knows? But it's Illinois, so who knows?
Yeah. What's next?
Anyways, Margaret, I don't know if this is Altvater or Fatir. I'm totally screwing it up. Anyways, Ms. Margaret. James, I saw your wood thread videos. You had mentioned making an old threading box with a V-cutter maybe in the future, but saw that you bought one. Are you still going to make an old school threading box?
Yes. The problem is I made that box and I made very big threads because they're far easier to show in the video. The problem is I need to make a V-cutter that will then fit that. And I actually need 2 V-cutters because I made a double thread. And so I haven't found a good resource to buy them. I can anneal a big triangular file and shape one and make my own and then harden it again. But it's a lot of work, and I haven't gotten up to doing that. So I'm held back by finding a source for the cutters. Tay Tools sells cutters for the regular thread boxes, but they're much smaller. So they wouldn't work for the bolt that I cut. But someday maybe. Yeah, I have a whole set of thread boxes up to 1.5 inches, I think it is, because it's just simple to buy them. Though they do tend to be expensive if you're buying them new. Most of mine I bought at MWTCA meets, and I've gotten them for $20 for a set. And a couple that were like 30, 40, but not bad. Yeah. What's next?
Just a second.
Tapey.
Anyways, let's see. Cory Miller wants to know, cherry or sugar maple saw handle? Incorrect answer, white oak. Sorry. Anyways.
Yeah, there you go. Cherry or hard maple? Cherry. I don't like hard maple. It looks horrible. Maple's just, ugh, it's bland and there's no character to it. Like, who wants? It's like Guido, you know, white walls, black walls. The white walls, they say love me. You know, you need something with a character in there, and Cherry tends to have at least some character to it. So yeah, Cherry. You know, as to, you know, durability and quality, and generally that really doesn't make that big a difference. Harder wood, yeah, it will last longer. It'll be more durable in the long run, but only slightly. It's not going to be that big a difference. So do what makes you happy. I'm actually in the middle of making two. One of them is out of a, here, let me show you. One of them is a live oak burl, and I've got some voids I'm going to fill in a little later, but I'm loving this. It's just looking gorgeous. And this one is a walnut burl, much the same. So, yeah, I'm having fun. What's next?
Let's see, Ken Carlile. Any tips on cleaning up the chip breaker on a large wooden plane? Mine just jams up in the mouth like crazy, and I'm pretty sure it's the chip breaker.
Yes, I actually have a video on how to fix clogs on a plane. Because if there's a clog in the mouth, 99% of the time it's a problem with the chip breaker not mating to the iron. So if you're doing it, let me grab one out here that is actually going to show it. Let me grab my 4.5. So what you've often got is that if you hold the two up together, so you put them together and you hold them up to the light, you look through the bow of the chip breaker, you can want to make sure you don't see any light coming between the chip breaker and the iron. And so you're actually going to be looking through this eye and looking through and seeing in between.
Change camera.
I thought I pushed the button. I didn't. Looking through the eye and seeing if you can see anything coming through there. You want that to be mating all the way across. Number two, you want to make sure, I'm going to slide this back a little bit, when you slide your finger along, it doesn't catch on there. You want it to be able to slide over that without causing any issue or running into anything. It's got to be a nice, smooth transition. So sometimes there's like a little ridge in there that the chips can fit into and run over. So when it actually comes time to work on it, you take the chip breaker, take this out, and so imagine that this is, oh, I dropped that on the floor. Imagine that this is your sharpener. I'll put this on a lower surface and I'll grind this in. And so that actually puts a bit of an angle on the tip so that when it touches, only the very edge of this is actually touching the steel. And I've got a whole video showing that. If you look at how to fix, I think it was how to fix clog. I should probably do another one, like that's on the old channel. Oh no, that one's gone. Yeah, it's gone. I'll have to look for that later. Oh well. What's that?
Just trying to figure out what you're looking for.
Oh, the screw from this, it fell through a dog hole.
Of course it
Such
did.
is life. What's next?
So Worth is making funny. Are you the only woodworker who doesn't close drawers? Sawdust/shavings collector.
Close drawers? Oh yeah, that one I can't close all the way. I don't know which one you're... I don't have any drawers in here really other than that. Why, what am I missing?
It's Worth. He's just making fun of you.
Oh, well, that's normal.
Anyways. C. Joe wants to know, any plans to go back to Colonial Homestead?
Not right now. There are lots of other tool stores I want to go back and show. Colonial Homestead is phenomenal. I love going there. There's also one up in Wisconsin. I've been wanting to get up there for a while. And what?
Donde?
It's about halfway between the Dells and La Crosse.
We're due to go to La Crosse anytime soon.
Yeah, we should do that. It's McNulty Tools, and I've been wanting to get out there, but haven't had a chance. There's a bunch of them. There's like 5 of them in Maine. There's one in Pennsylvania. There's like 2 or 3 in Pennsylvania. There's one in Philadelphia directly. Yeah, if you want to see, I have a map on handtoolfinder.com. It's a map of the entire world and every place I know of to buy hand tools. But yeah, I don't have any particular plans to go back there anytime soon because I was just there a month and a half ago. And
Ohio's
it's
a
an
long
8-hour drive for
state.
me.
All right, let's see. Margaret wants to know, James, have you ever or would you ever make a toothing iron / toothing plane, and do they really help with less tear out on figured grain?
I have my toothing plane. I almost never use my toothing plane. Yes, they do not cause particular tear out, but they don't leave you with a finished surface. So after you've done this, you then have to smooth the surface. And so whatever you're using there has to not cause tear out either. And no, I don't. A lot of people use them kind of like a scrub plane, but they don't take off any more material than a regular plane. So I don't understand that one exactly. A toothing plane is really good for figured veneers or veneered surfaces where you don't want to dive in and take out a chunk. You just want to be scuffing off the top. And then you can come in with a card scraper to do your final detail on it. They're very good at that. But other than that, there aren't a lot of things that I would use one for. Would I ever make a toothing plane? No. Would I ever make a toothing iron? No. I would buy one of those. They're for the price that it's not worth the time to make one of those because they are crazy difficult. Let me show you what they are. Come loose. So on this, we have something that's out of focus. There we go. You can see all those lines in there. You'd have to actually cut all those lines into the flat surface. And so those actually give you a toothed profile all the way along the edge. And is it worth it the time to make that yourself? No. There are companies that make them that you don't have to. So yeah. As to making the plane, it's exactly like any other plane except for it's usually at a very high angle. Yeah, I'm on the camera good. So I mean with the regular the toothing plane I have here, you can see how it's at a really, really high angle. But that's what they are. But for tear out, yes, they don't cause as much tear out, so that's a great thing. But they don't leave a smooth surface, so you have to come back with something else to clean them up. So, what's next?
Tommy Engel wants you to post a list of the antique tool stores that you want to visit the most.
Oh, my website. Yeah, that map. I want to go visit them all. That's actually one of the things my wife and I have been talking about is that once we get to the point that she can quit being a nurse, we're going to do a lot more traveling and actually visit places. On that map, I also have a subsection of woodworking sites that we want to visit. Historical reenactment places and mills and tool factories and things like that I want to do. So that is on the map as well.
So if y'all got places, no, I'm teasing.
Yeah, no, if you have something that I think would make a really cool video, send it to me. I'll put it on there.
I was going to say places to crash, but anyway.
Well, that too.
No, there was, who was it? Bill Tiffin wanted to know, do you have any collaborations in the plans?
Yeah, I've got, well, one that's taking forever and probably won't be until the end of this year or more, with Hand Tool Rescue, Rex Kruger, oh, come on. Oh, European dude. Green Frog,
So
and
specific.
Yuri Tukman, there we are. And so we are all restoring one plane together. I've done my part. Hand Tool Rescue's done his part. It's currently with Rex, but he hasn't had much time recently because he's been moving. So it might skip him and go to Yuri Tukman and then come back to him. But because it's literally getting shipped all over the world, it's going to take a while. So yeah, that one's coming fun. Other collaboration, I don't have any other particular ones right now. But I would like to. I like doing collaborations. They're a lot of fun. So what's next?
Maybe one day we'll get back to Sarah's projects, but anyway.
What, do you mean you want to use my horizontal surface over here?
your horizontal surface. I built that horizontal surface, and you're going to be gone for the next 4 days. So who knows what you're going to come home to? Anyway.
Why do you think I piled a good
I was
ton of wood up against
it's
it
too
right
heavy
now?
for me.
Let me show you guys. So,
He barricaded it.
I have, way out of focus. I've got, 2 dining room tables worth of red oak, probably somewhere around 800 pounds on top of her bench right now.
And you all wonder why it takes me so long.
What's next?
Anyways, all right, let's see. Ken Carlile, my number 6 has a loose tote, but tightening the screw to the body and the nut don't do a darn thing. Any idea how to fix it?
Yes. What happens is over time the wood compresses and the nut just drives itself deeper and deeper and deeper into the wood. So there's a couple things you could do. Number one, you can take the screw out and cut it or file it down a little bit, take an 1/8 inch off, put it back in, and it'll tighten it down. Number two, you can buy a new tote that has enough space in there, it hasn't been fully compressed. Number three, you can actually, what you do is you, what's the word I'm looking for? Epoxy a space down in there. So basically the shelf that the nut sits on has been crushed down, so you can fill that space back up with epoxy. So it's kind of difficult to do. It's still leaving a hole. Most people end up filling the whole thing up with epoxy and then re-drilling the main hole. Yeah, so those are your basic options. Most people end up just filing the rod a little bit shorter and then stick it down in there. It works perfectly fine. But yeah, it's something that happens with old tools, especially as the expansion and contraction over the years. And every time you tighten it down, because it loosens up in the winter when everything dries up, and so you have to be constantly tightening it back down, and eventually you crush it and have used up all your threads. So then you can make the thread shorter and continue on doing it more. What's next?
Perez Hernandez. We haven't seen Perez in a while. I am making a handle for a back saw. I bought some split nuts for it. However, the diameter of the nut holes on the saw is larger than the nut beam. How can I make it work?
The diameter of the nut holes on the saw is larger than the nut beam.
The hole, well, yeah, that's the nut beam. Maybe the holes on the beam?
I don't know what you're saying. If you're saying that the holes in the saw plate are larger than the bolt that's going through them, so there'd be slop in the saw plate, yeah, it's really nice if they're really tight, but it's not as important as having just a good clamping force on there. So you can use slightly smaller screws and larger holes. But if there's too much slop in there, you can run into problems. And in that case, you're better off getting a bigger bolt to go into it and get different saw nuts. Because yeah, the only way to fix that is to redraw the holes, and you can't do that in a plate without making a handle and putting the nuts in different places. So I mean, if you're making a new handle, you can put the nuts in a different place and drill a new hole through the plate at the correct size, and that would work. But if you've already put the holes into the handle that you've remade, well, then you're up a creek without a paddle. So yeah, bigger nuts. But honestly, I mean, most of the time it's really not going to cause that big a deal. As long as there's not too much slop in there, you can tighten it down, and the actual clamping force of the wood on the plate is what holds it in place. So yeah. Hope that answered your question. If not, throw it back in the chat and we might have time to get to it. What's next?
Okay, sorry. Like, the chat got very, very active. Let's see. Of course, it's 7 minutes left. Arthur wants to know, what do you think are the best hand tools and methods to mill wood from logs in a home shop?
If you're talking simple logs that are 12 inches or less, a Roubo style frame saw, and just treat it like resawing. I have a video on how to cut your own veneer, or actually no, it was in how to make your own plywood, and I cut veneer out of a log and layered it together to make my plywood. And a Roubo style frame saw is just the way to go. It's basically a small pit saw. And a pit saw is, well, a big Roubo Faustian frame saw. And a pit saw would have one person would stand on top of the log with the saw going up and down. and one person would be down underneath the log pulling it down. And you would think that the person on the bottom would have the worst job with all the sawdust coming down on it, but the person on the top had to be doing squats and lifting the saw all day long. The person on the bottom got gravity to help them. So it was kind of one of those things that would be fun. So that would be what you would use to cut big logs. But if you're talking 12 inches or less, things like that in the shop, a frame saw would do you up well. Just clamp it in a vise and go to town on it. I was going to do a video on it a while ago, but I hurt my back and then never actually got back to it. One of these days I need to finish that one up.
No, you don't need to.
I haven't done it. Well, the log is sitting in the garage waiting for me to do something with it.
Oh, is that why?
Yeah. It's on one of those projects. I got hundreds of those projects. I should finish that up, but I've got other projects to do too. What's next?
Sorry. Walnut Woodworker wants to know, I'm working on making an investment cast shoulder plane. Should I make it bevel down at 37 degrees or bevel up at 12 degrees? My hole in the ground forge can rebar.
Shoulder plane. 6 of one, half dozen of another. I mean, if you're really going to be using it as a shoulder plane and you're going to be doing end grain, bevel down, really low angle. The lower the angle you can get, the better. Having the cutter in line with the cut just makes it a little bit easier to push through the wood. There's less vibration from it. But if you're going to be rarely doing the end grain, then I generally prefer to do it bevel down, and then that way you can actually get a lower cutting angle from that. But 6 of one, half dozen of another. The debate between bevel up, bevel down is kind of a pedantic fight. So.
Oh, can melt rebar. Did that make a difference?
Well, it's just telling you.
Okay. It got thrown in the chat just now, so. I don't know those things. All right, are you ready for another question?
Yeah.
All right, this is the last question. Tom Engel wants to know, are you going to do a live from the national meet?
Yes, I'm going to be doing a live on Thursday. I'm going to be doing a live on Friday, and I'm going to be doing a live on Saturday. So Thursday's video is going to be moved up to tomorrow, and that's where the knobs are coming out. So we've got a live tonight, video tomorrow, live Thursday, live Friday, live Saturday. You're going to see a lot of me. We're going to have some fun. Thursday and Friday will be on this channel. Saturday will be on the other channel. So stay tuned. It will be a lot of fun. And if you are walking around and I'm walking around with my camcorder and you want to be in the video, say hi, and I'll point you out and say hi, and you can be on the video too. If not, just say don't, and I won't show your face.
In case you're called in sick to work, don't do that.
What's that?
It's in case you call in sick to work.
Yeah. I had someone not happy with me doing a live video because he did that. It's like, I don't want my boss to know. It's like, does your boss want my channel? It's like, yeah, well, then I'm sorry.
Thank you, but.
What's next?
Caught up.
We're caught up? All right, good. We're at the end.
Safety.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Worth the Effort was saying you can use maul wedges and split to split the log. I have a video on how to get free lumber and actually doing that with splitting it out. It's a lot of work, but it's really good to get riven lumber, and that can work out very well. Just a lot of work, but good lumber. I mean, the best lumber you can possibly get. So I think that'll about do it. And if you're going to be at the MWTCA meet this weekend, stop by, say hi, and I'm looking forward to seeing you. But on that note, until next time, have a wonderful day. Bye.
So,